I'm Sarah, 35, a former music teacher from Colorado whose world shattered into 1,000 pieces last spring. My sweet 5-year-old daughter, Lily, fought leukemia with the courage of a lion, but in the end, the disease was stronger than her tiny body. At her funeral, I stood alone clutching her favorite teddy bear. Michael, my husband, wasn't there beside me. He claimed to be on an emergency business trip. At least, that's what I believed until I saw the credit card statement filled with charges from a luxury resort in the Maldives and received the phone call confirming what I dreaded. He was there with another woman. He had no idea what awaited him when he returned. Before I go on, let me know where you're watching from in the comments and subscribe for more real-life stories that capture the resilience of the human spirit. I never imagined my life would unravel this way. Before everything fell apart, my life seemed perfect. My passion for music led me to teach at an elementary school, where the joy on children's faces as they mastered their first song was the greatest reward I could imagine. I met Michael at a charity concert for the Denver Symphony Orchestra. I'd gone with some colleagues from school, and he was attending with clients from his investment banking firm. Our eyes met across the reception hall during intermission, and he crossed the room to introduce himself. Tall, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes, Michael was charming and seemed genuinely interested in my love for music education. By the end of the night, he had my phone number and a promise for dinner the following weekend. Things moved quickly after that. Michael swept me off my feet with romantic gestures, weekend getaways to the mountains, and his constant support for my work with the kids. Within 6 months, he proposed during a private helicopter ride over the Rocky Mountains at sunset. I said yes without hesitation, convinced I'd found my soulmate. "When you know, my mother said when I called her with the news, though I could sense the quiet worry in her voice about how fast it was all happening. Our wedding was elegant but intimate, held at a historic hotel in downtown Denver. Michael spared no expense, insisting that our special day should be nothing short of perfect. Looking back at those photos now feels like staring at strangers. Two people with bright eyes and hopeful smiles who had no idea what awaited them. We soon settled into a beautiful craftsman-style home in one of Denver's nicest neighborhoods. Michael's career was flourishing, and after much discussion, I decided to take a break from teaching to focus on starting a family. That choice was easier knowing Michael's income could comfortably support us. "You deserve to focus on what makes you happiest," he told me, kissing my forehead. "And I can't wait to see you as a mother." But starting our family was far harder than we imagined. For 2 long years, every month ended in disappointment and growing guilt on my part. Michael was patient at first, holding me as I cried and assuring me it would happen when the time was right. But as the months dragged on, subtle shifts in his tone began to appear. "Maybe we should consider other options," he said one night after yet another negative test. I knew he meant adoption or IVF, but the faint irritation in his voice hurt more than he realized. When I finally saw those 2 pink lines appear, I could hardly believe it. I planned a special dinner and revealed the news with a tiny pair of baby shoes on his dessert plate. His face lit up brighter than I'd seen in months, and he lifted me off the floor, spinning me around the kitchen. "This is it, Sarah. This is the beginning of everything," he whispered. The pregnancy wasn't easy. Severe morning sickness followed me well into my 2nd trimester, but Michael was attentive, making late-night runs for the few foods I could stomach and rubbing my back through the worst of it. When Lily Elizabeth Williams finally arrived after 22 grueling hours of labor, the look on Michael's face as he held her for the first time made every struggle worthwhile. Those first 3 years with Lily were pure magic. She was bright and joyful, with my love for music and Michael's analytical mind. She started humming melodies before she could even speak, and by the time she was 3, she was already picking out simple songs on the small keyboard Michael had bought for her. We took family trips to the beach, built snowmen in our yard during Colorado winters, and filled our days with love and laughter. But as Lily turned 3, I began noticing subtle shifts in Michael. His work hours stretched longer, and his business trips became more frequent. He started missing dinner, coming home only after Lily was fast asleep, His phone buzzed constantly with messages he'd check right away, often stepping out of the room to reply. "It's just a busy period," he explained. "This big client needs constant attention. Things will slow down soon." I tried to be understanding. After all, his career supported the life we enjoyed. But then there were other signs. The new cologne I didn't recognize, the sudden gym membership, the unexplained gaps in his schedule. One night, I called his office during what was supposed to be a late meeting, only to learn he'd left hours earlier. When I confronted him, he had an answer for everything. The cologne was a client's gift. The gym was for stress relief. He'd gone out for dinner before heading back to work. His calm, logical tone made me feel paranoid for even questioning him. So I pushed my doubts aside and focused on raising our beautiful daughter. Lily was the center of my world. Her laughter contagious, her energy endless. She had Michael's blue eyes, my curly hair, and a spirit that could brighten any room she entered. "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to play music for everyone in the whole wide world," she told me one night as I tucked her in. "I think you will, sweetheart," I replied, unaware that her chance to grow up would be stolen from us both. The day everything changed began like any other. Lily and I were at the neighborhood playground on a crisp autumn afternoon. She was running around with her usual joy, her little ponytail bouncing with each step. Then, suddenly, she stopped and sat down on the ground. "I'm tired." "Mommy," she said softly, her normally rosy cheeks pale. That's when I noticed the bruises on her arms, ones I couldn't recall her getting. When I picked her up, she felt limp, too light, too still. Something deep inside me, a primal maternal instinct, screamed that something was terribly wrong. Instead of going home, I drove straight to the emergency room. The next few hours were a blur of tests, doctors, and rising panic. When the pediatric oncologist asked to speak with us privately, my legs nearly gave out. Michael had arrived by then, rushing from work the moment I called. "Your daughter has acute lymphoblastic leukemia," the doctor said gently. "It's a cancer of the blood and bone marrow." The words hit like blows. Cancer. Bone marrow. Leukemia. Our perfect 4-year-old daughter. "There must be some mistake," Michael said, his voice too steady, too calm. "She was fine yesterday, running, playing. Completely normal." The doctor explained that leukemia in children often appeared suddenly, but that treatments had advanced greatly and survival rates were much higher now. "We need to begin treatment immediately," he said. "The good news is that children often respond very well to chemotherapy." The weeks after the diagnosis were a waking nightmare. Hospital rooms, medical jargon, and watching our little girl endure treatments that made her sicker than the disease itself. Michael took time off work at first, sleeping in the uncomfortable hospital chair beside me, holding my hand as we watched Lily rest between bouts of chemo-induced sickness. "We're going to get through this," he promised. "I'll do whatever it takes. Second opinions, experimental treatments, anything." For a while, I believed him completely. I saw the love in his eyes when he looked at Lily, heard the fierce determination in his voice when he spoke to the doctors. But as weeks turned into months, something began to change. Michael started going back to work, first for a few hours, then full days. "Someone has to keep the money coming in," he said. "These treatments aren't cheap, even with insurance." He wasn't wrong. Even with excellent coverage, the copays and out-of-network specialists drained our savings quickly. But it wasn't just about money. Michael was pulling away. Emotionally, gradually. He spent less time at the hospital, always with some reasonable excuse, deadlines, meetings, clients he couldn't ignore. I became Lily's full-time caregiver, learning to flush her central line, manage her medications, and recognize early signs of infection, each one a potential threat to her fragile immune system. My world shrank to the pediatric oncology floor, its bright murals trying and failing to disguise the heartbreak that lived there. The first real fracture in our marriage came 3 months into Lily's treatment, the day Michael missed a crucial appointment with her oncologist. I'd reminded him over and over, emphasizing how important it was, and he'd promised he would be there. But when the time came to discuss Lily's response to the first phase of treatment, I sat alone, struggling to absorb the medical jargon while fighting back tears of worry and frustration. When Michael finally called hours later, his excuse about an unavoidable client emergency rang hollow. "This is your daughter's life we're talking about," I hissed into the phone, stepping into the hallway so Lily wouldn't hear. "What client could possibly be more important?" "That's not fair, Sarah," he shot back, his voice tight. "I'm doing everything I can to keep our finances afloat while you're at the hospital. Someone has to think about the long term." His words stung like a slap, as if I were spending every waking hour at the hospital by choice, as if caring for our desperately ill child were some sort of indulgence. After 6 months of grueling treatment, we finally received the news we'd been praying for. Lily was in remission. The leukemia cells were undetectable. We celebrated cautiously, knowing the journey wasn't over, that years of maintenance therapy still lay ahead. But we were deeply grateful for this fragile victory. For a short time, our family found a rhythm again. Lily's hair began to grow back, a soft fuzz of light brown curls. Her energy returned, though she tired more easily than before. We even managed a weekend trip to the mountains, a precious escape from hospital walls and medication schedules. But the reprieve didn't last. Just 3 months into remission, a routine blood test showed abnormalities. Further tests confirmed our worst fear. The leukemia had returned, fiercer than before. By then, Michael's presence had all but faded. He worked longer hours than ever, and weekend conferences became routine. During one such weekend, when Lily was admitted with a dangerously high fever, I couldn't reach him for hours. When he finally called back, I could hear music and laughter in the background, nothing that sounded remotely like a business event. The exhaustion of being Lily's constant caregiver, mixed with my growing doubts about Michael's absences, left me completely drained. My parents offered to come stay with us, but pride kept me from accepting right away. I wanted to believe Michael and I could face this together, even as it became clear we were fighting very different battles. "Mommy, why doesn't Daddy come to the hospital anymore?" Lily asked one evening as I tucked her into her hospital bed. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Daddy has to work extra hard right now, sweetie. But he loves you so much and thinks about you all the time." The lie tasted bitter, but I couldn't add to her burdens. As I sang her to sleep, watching the steady drip of chemotherapy flow into her small body, I wondered how much longer either of us could endure. My suspicions about Michael could no longer be brushed aside the day I found a hotel receipt in the pocket of his suit jacket while doing laundry. The dates matched a weekend he'd claimed to be at a financial conference in Seattle, but the hotel was in San Diego. When I confronted him, he exploded with uncharacteristic anger. "Are you seriously checking up on me? Going through my pockets like some paranoid detective?" His face turned red as he snatched the receipt from my hand. "The conference was moved last minute. I didn't think the city mattered, given everything else we're dealing with." His excuse was plausible enough, but his fury was unsettling. For the first time, I felt afraid of my husband, not physically, but afraid of what his anger might be hiding. My closest friend, Sandra, who had stood by me through Lily's illness, finally said what I had been too afraid to admit. "Sarah, I don't want to make things harder for you," she said gently over coffee in the hospital cafeteria. "But Michael's behavior isn't normal, not even under stress. Most fathers would be here constantly, not finding reasons to be away." That's when I broke down completely. "I know something's wrong," I confessed, tears spilling over. "But I can't deal with it right now. Lily needs all my strength." As Lily's condition worsened, Michael's absences became more frequent and harder to explain. Unfamiliar charges began appearing on our credit card. Expensive restaurants I'd never heard of, a jewelry purchase I'd never seen. Once, when he returned from a trip, I caught the scent of another woman's perfume on his shirt before he quickly tossed it in the laundry. The deepest cut came when Michael missed Lily's 5th birthday. We'd planned a small celebration in her hospital room, her favorite, chocolate cupcakes and a few presents waiting by her bedside. Nurses had decorated Lily's hospital room with pink balloons and streamers. She was weak from her latest round of treatment, but still excited for her special day, constantly asking when Daddy would arrive. "He's trying his best to get here, sweetheart," I told her, glancing at my phone for what felt like the 100th time. Michael had texted that morning saying his flight from Chicago was delayed due to bad weather. But when I checked online, every flight from Chicago was running on schedule. By the time we sang Happy Birthday, Michael still hadn't shown up, or even called. The look on Lily's face as she blew out her candles, the faint flicker of disappointment shadowing her smile, is something I'll never forget. Or forgive. That night, after Lily had finally drifted off to sleep, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. When I answered, a woman's voice asked, "Is Michael there?" Before I could respond, she hung up. The next morning, Michael finally appeared, armed with an extravagant gift and a stream of apologies about canceled flights and a dead phone battery. When I confronted him about the flights running on time and the mysterious phone call, he turned defensive. "You know, you don't look so great lately, Sarah," he said abruptly, changing the subject. "Maybe you should take a break, get some real sleep at home. You're becoming obsessed and paranoid." His words cut deeper than he knew. I hadn't slept properly in months, surviving on hospital cafeteria food and quick showers in Lily's cramped bathroom. Of course I didn't look great. I was watching our daughter fight for her life while he was, God knows where. Not long after, I found a text message on Michael's phone while he left it charging during a shower. It was from someone named Amanda. "Miss you already. Last night was amazing. Can't wait until Chicago next week." When I confronted him, Michael didn't even flinch. "Amanda's a new colleague," he said coolly. "That message was about a successful client meeting. You're reading into things because you're stressed. Maybe you should talk to someone about your anxiety." The gaslighting was subtle, but it worked. Between the emotional toll of Lily's illness and my growing isolation, I started to doubt my own instincts. The hospital social worker, noticing how fragile I'd become, gently offered support sessions. "What you're going through would break anyone," she told me kindly. "And it sounds like you're carrying this burden almost entirely on your own." I broke down then, finally admitting the truth. My daughter is dying, and my husband is somewhere else, in every possible sense. She helped me see that my feelings weren't paranoia. My suspicions were valid, but she urged me to focus on what truly mattered: Lily and myself. Michael's betrayals could wait until the immediate crisis passed. But as Lily's condition deteriorated, it became harder to find the strength to face each new day. The only thing keeping me going was her faith in me, her belief that I would always be there. When she asked, "Why doesn't Daddy come to the hospital anymore?" I protected her with soft lies. "Daddy has to work so the doctors can help make you better," I'd say, hating myself for defending him. One especially difficult night, after a painful procedure, Lily looked up at me with eyes far too wise for her years. "It's okay, Mommy," she whispered. "You're enough for both of you." Those words both healed and broke me all at once. The beginning of the end came on a rainy Tuesday in April. Lily's oncologist asked to speak with me privately, and before he even spoke, I knew. The look on his face said everything. After multiple rounds of aggressive treatment, the cancer was spreading to her central nervous system. "We've exhausted all standard protocols," he said softly. "There are experimental options, but I have to be honest. The success rates in cases like Lily's are very limited." I refused to surrender. I spent nights researching clinical trials, reaching out to specialists across the country, determined to find something, anything, that might save her. When I showed Michael information about a promising trial in Boston, his response chilled me. "Be realistic, Sarah. We've already spent a fortune on treatments that aren't working. At what point do we accept the inevitable instead of bankrupting ourselves?" The argument that followed was like nothing we'd ever experienced. I couldn't believe he was talking about money while our daughter's life hung in the balance. For the first time, I saw him clearly, stripped of the charm and compassion I once believed in. "This isn't about money," I shouted, my voice breaking. This is about our daughter. My parents arrived the next day, having heard the devastation in my voice during our last phone call. My father, usually the embodiment of calm, could hardly look at Michael without his jaw tightening in restrained fury. My mother took charge of practical matters, making sure I ate and occasionally slept, while spending hours reading softly to Lily or brushing her doll's hair when Lily was too weak to do it herself. Her decline was terrifyingly swift, the cancer consuming her from the inside out. All we could do was manage her pain and cling to moments of quiet togetherness. Through it all, she remained our brave, tender-hearted girl, more concerned about my tears than her own suffering. "Don't be sad, Mommy," she would whisper, her once bright voice now faint and fragile. "The angels are waiting for me," they told me in my dreams. Michael's reaction to Lily's worsening condition was to announce an emergency business trip to Asia. "The Singapore office is in crisis," he explained, already folding shirts into his suitcase. "If I don't go, we could lose our biggest clients." I stared at him in disbelief. "Your daughter is dying, Michael. She could be gone in days. Nothing is more important than being here." He avoided my eyes, continuing to pack. "I don't have a choice, Bethany. I'll have my phone. Call if anything changes. If anything changes?" I repeated, my voice rising, trembling with rage and heartbreak. "You mean if she dies while you're gone? Is that the update you're waiting for?" Michael flinched but said nothing. Before leaving, he stopped briefly in Lily's room. She was sleeping, her breathing shallow, her small body swallowed by the hospital bed. He kissed her forehead, whispered something I couldn't hear, and left without looking back. The next 48 hours blurred into a haze of pain medication schedules, hushed conversations with palliative care doctors, and the unbearable sight of my daughter fading before my eyes. My parents took turns so I could shower or rest for minutes at a time, but I refused to leave the hospital. I called Michael again and again as Lily's condition worsened, but every call went to voicemail. My messages became more desperate. "She's asking for you. The doctors say it could be hours. Please, Michael, whatever you're doing, stop and come now." No reply. On what would become Lily's final night, I climbed into her narrow hospital bed, careful not to disturb the tubes and wires. I held her close, singing her favorite lullaby, a song about moonbeams and dreams that had comforted her since she was a baby. As the night wore on, her breathing grew labored. "I love you to the moon and stars and back again," I whispered into her ear. Our special phrase. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, a faint smile ghosting across her pale lips. "Love you more, Mommy," she murmured, barely audible. Those were her last words. In the early hours of morning, with her tiny hand in mine and my mother's steady hand on my shoulder, Lily took her final breath. The silence that followed was unbearable. A hollow, aching void where her breathing had once been the rhythm of my world. The hospital staff were kind and gentle, letting me hold her as long as I needed. I memorized every detail of her face, kissed her cooling cheeks, and whispered promises to carry her in my heart forever. Between waves of shock and grief, I kept trying to reach Michael. Hours later, my phone finally buzzed, not with a call but a text. "So sorry, in meetings, back soon." 5 words. Cold, detached, and utterly insufficient. Something inside me shattered completely then, the last fragile thread of trust. My devastation was total. The nurses helped gather keepsakes, locks of Lily's hair, small plaster casts of her hands, treasures of what once was. As dawn broke on a world without her, I felt hollow, despite my parents' presence. The one person who should have shared this unbearable grief had abandoned us both in the end. The days after Lily's death passed in a haze of numbness and obligation. My body went through the motions of funeral arrangements while my mind refused to comprehend that she was truly gone. Every task felt unbearable. Every choice another wound. Choosing the tiny white casket broke me completely. Picking out her favorite blue dress with the embroidered butterflies stole my breath. And when I placed her beloved stuffed bunny beside her for burial, its fur worn thin from years of love, whatever was left of my heart finally crumbled. Throughout it all, Michael remained unreachable, his only contact coming in the form of brief, hollow text messages. Dealing with major client crisis. Will be home as soon as possible. Trust you to handle arrangements. My parents, especially my father, were furious. This is unforgivable, he raged after yet another day passed without Michael's return. No business emergency justifies abandoning your family at a time like this. My mother, quieter but no less angry, had a hardness in her eyes I'd rarely seen. When he does return, she said coolly, he'll find his things on the front lawn. My friend Sandra became my anchor, handling calls I couldn't bear to answer, organizing meals I rarely touched, and sitting beside me through endless nights when sleep refused to come. It was Sandra who gently suggested I contact Michael's office directly, if only to confirm where he truly was. What I discovered shattered whatever remained of the life I thought we shared. His assistant, clearly uncomfortable, finally admitted that Michael wasn't on a business trip at all. He had taken vacation days, not emergency leave. The supposed Singapore crisis? She knew nothing about it. That night, after my parents had gone to bed in the guest room, I sat alone at our computer, methodically searching for the truth. I combed through our shared accounts, emails, credit card statements, travel itineraries, each revealing fragments of betrayal. In the trash folder of our shared email, I found a booking confirmation for a luxury resort in the Maldives, a couple's package, complete with private villa and plunge pool. The latest credit card statement listed charges for couples' massages, sunset cruises, and candlelit dinners, all while I'd been holding our daughter's hand as she slipped away, hands trembling. I searched for Amanda among Michael's work contacts. There she was, Amanda Lawson, 26, junior investment analyst, blonde, smiling from recent posts tagged Paradise Found, photos of turquoise waters, white sand, and a caption, Best week of my life with my favorite person. I called the resort, forcing my voice to stay calm and professional. Hello, this is Amanda Lawson. My boyfriend Michael Williams and I are staying in Villa 12. We've had some issues with our booking confirmations. Can you please check everything's in order for the rest of our stay? The cheerful receptionist confirmed that all was perfect for their remaining 3 days, and asked if we were enjoying the champagne breakfast delivered that morning. Actually, I said evenly, could you send a photo from our sunset cruise yesterday? My boyfriend's phone was damaged, and we lost all our pictures. An hour later, the photo arrived by email. Michael, tanned and grinning, clinked glasses with a young blonde woman on the deck of a boat, the sunset blazing behind them. They looked carefree, radiant, utterly oblivious to the world, or to the fact that their daughter's funeral was being planned thousands of miles away. I stared at the image for hours, the contrast between their joy and my devastation twisting something deep inside me. Then, for the first time since Lily's death, the crushing weight of grief gave way to something colder, clarity, and rage. The funeral director, David, a kind, patient man who had guided me gently through the unbearable, noticed the shift in me when I arrived at his office the next morning. My eyes were swollen, but my voice steady. I need to move forward with the funeral, I told him firmly. Tomorrow, if possible. I won't be waiting for my husband's return, David simply nodded. We can arrange that. A small private service? Yes, I said. Just family and close friends. Lily wouldn't have wanted a crowd. That afternoon, I wrote Lily's obituary, selected photos for the memorial, and chose songs that captured her bright, joyful spirit. I made no effort to contact Michael. If he couldn't be there for her last breath, he had no right to stand beside me as we said goodbye. The morning of Lily's funeral dawned under a soft spring rain, the world itself seeming to mourn her loss. I dressed in a simple black dress, one Lily had once said made me look like a princess in a sad movie. The memory made me cry, but it also brought a fragile smile. The chapel was small but filled with love. My parents, Sandra, Lily's preschool teacher, several of her little classmates clutching flowers, nurses from the oncology floor, and a few close friends who had carried us through the darkest months. Michael's parents had flown in from Florida, pale with confusion and grief. "We can't reach him," his mother sobbed as she hugged me tightly. We had no idea Lily had taken such a turn. "The last we heard, she was responding to treatment," Michael's mother said through tears. I didn't have the heart or the energy to explain her son's deception. Let him face that truth himself when he finally returned. Instead, I accepted their grief and support, knowing they had always loved Lily deeply and had been devoted grandparents. The service was both beautiful and unbearable. Lily's tiny white casket, blanketed in pink roses and white lilies, seemed impossibly small to contain all the light and laughter she had brought into our lives. The minister spoke tenderly of innocent souls returning to heaven too soon, of the special radiance children like Lily bring during their brief time on earth. When it was my turn to speak, I found a strength I didn't know I possessed. Standing before the mourners, I chose not to speak of hospitals or suffering, but of Lily's joy, her laughter, her love of music, her kindness toward other children, her boundless imagination. "My daughter packed more love and joy into 5 short years than most people manage in a lifetime," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "She taught me that bravery isn't the absence of fear, but the ability to smile through it. And she showed me that even in the darkest moments, there's always something beautiful, if you're willing to look for it." At the graveside, I fulfilled a promise I had made to Lily during her final weeks. I took out my violin, an instrument I hadn't touched since before her diagnosis, and played her favorite tune, the one she'd lovingly called the Butterfly Song, because it made her imagine butterflies dancing. The notes floated into the soft spring air, carrying my grief and love upward, a final gift from mother to daughter. As mourners placed their flowers upon her casket, I added 2 things of my own: her beloved stuffed bunny, which I had kept back from the funeral home because I couldn't bear to part with it, and a letter I had written. A lifetime of love poured into a few pages. Words she would never read, but I needed to say. After the service, a small reception was held at my parents' home. I drifted through it like a ghost, accepting condolences, answering gentle questions, and sharing memories when asked. The absence of Michael hung heavily over the room. People avoided mentioning him after their initial awkward inquiries were met with vague responses. A few of his colleagues appeared briefly, offering cards and flowers, their unease palpable. Later, I learned that they'd been told Lily had died suddenly, no mention of Michael's tropical getaway during her final days. When the last guest had gone, leaving only my parents and Sandra, I retreated to Lily's bedroom. Everything was exactly as she'd left it. Her stuffed animals arranged neatly on the bed, books stacked on the nightstand, half-finished drawings scattered across her little desk. The room felt suspended in time, waiting for her to return. Sandra found me hours later, still sitting on the floor clutching Lily's baby blanket, breathing in the faint trace of her scent. "You need to rest, Bethany," she whispered, helping me gently to my feet. "Let me stay with you tonight. You shouldn't be alone." I let her guide me to bed, though sleep never came. Instead, I spent the night flipping through photo albums and watching old videos of Lily on my phone, her laughter, her singing, her dancing in the kitchen in her pajamas. Each memory was a knife and a comfort all at once. The ache in my chest felt physical, each breath a reminder of what I'd lost. Somewhere between one sleepless hour and the next, I checked my phone again. Michael had finally texted. "Heading home Thursday. Singapore issues finally resolved. Hope all is well." The casual tone, the utter detachment, was staggering. As if our daughter's death were some minor household inconvenience he'd missed while handling business overseas. I didn't respond. Instead, something inside me hardened. Grief gave way to cold, deliberate resolve. If Michael thought he could return to his life as though nothing had happened, he was about to learn how wrong he was. The next morning, I called Jason, a lawyer friend who had offered to help with anything I needed. Sitting in his office later that day, I spread out the evidence I'd collected: emails, receipts, photos, credit card statements. "I want everything documented," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. His lies, his abandonment, all of it. And I want to make sure he can't touch a single cent that was meant for Lily's care. He forfeited that right the moment he chose the Maldives over his dying daughter. Jason reviewed the evidence grimly, occasionally shaking his head in disbelief. This goes beyond grounds for divorce, he said. It's abandonment during a family emergency. No judge will look kindly on that. With Jason's guidance, I spent the next 24 hours preparing for Michael's return. I legally withdrew half of our joint funds, changed the beneficiaries on my insurance policies, and began the paperwork to file for divorce on the grounds of adultery and abandonment. Back home, with Sandra and my father's help, I gathered every trace of Michael's belongings and moved them to the garage. Clothes, toiletries, gadgets, framed photos, every personal item that bore his mark. Then I changed the locks and reset the security codes. The cold, methodical precision with which I carried out each task startled even me. But collapse was not an option. Lily had deserved better than weakness. She deserved a mother strong enough to stand in the wreckage and rebuild. If my 5-year-old daughter could face death with grace and courage, then I could face this. By the time Michael's plane landed the next day, I was ready. He returned tanned, rested, and smiling. The picture of ease, so grotesquely out of place against my hollowed-out grief. He carried a small gift bag, probably some meaningless souvenir from his business trip. When he discovered the locks had been changed, his confusion bordered on disbelief. Bethany? What's going on? Why are the locks changed? He demanded, trying to step past me as I opened the door. You're not welcome here anymore, Michael. My voice was calm, unnervingly so. Your things are in the garage. Take them and go. His expression flickered between irritation, confusion, and finally alarm as he met my eyes and saw no trace of the woman who used to forgive him. Is this about me being away when Lily? He stopped, unable or unwilling to finish the sentence. Lily's funeral was 3 days ago, I said flatly. While you were enjoying couples massages in the Maldives with your mistress? The color drained from his face. What are you talking about? I was in Singapore handling a client emergency. You know that. Without a word, I took out my phone and showed him the photo, the one from the resort. His own face looked back at him, bronzed and carefree, champagne flute raised beside a smiling blonde woman. That's not... You don't understand, he stammered, the confident facade crumbling. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said. While our daughter was dying while I was planning her funeral, you were sipping champagne on a sunset cruise. What exactly am I misunderstanding? Michael's tone shifted instantly, denial melting into self-pity. You have no idea what I've been going through. The stress, the pressure, watching Lily suffer, knowing I couldn't help her. I just needed a break. My fury flared, sharp and white-hot. You needed a break? I echoed, my voice rising. Our 5-year-old daughter was dying. I sat beside her through every injection, every night of pain, every nightmare. I held her hand as she took her last breath. And you needed a break? He tried to push past me into the house, but I stood firm, blocking the doorway. This is my home, too, he said, his voice hardening. You can't just lock me out. We need to talk about this rationally. Your home? I laughed, a brittle, humorless sound. You forfeited any right to call this your home the moment you abandoned your family. And there's nothing to discuss. I've already withdrawn my share of our accounts. The divorce papers will be filed tomorrow. Shock and anger twisted his features. You can't do that. I already have, I replied coolly. And before you start thinking about contesting anything, know that my lawyer has documented everything. Your absence during Lily's final days, your lies about Singapore, your affair with your junior associate. I wonder how your firm would feel about that information. The panic in his eyes was unmistakable. Bethany, wait, please. Don't do this. I made a terrible mistake, I know that. But we've just lost our daughter. We should be supporting each other, not tearing apart what's left of our family. The audacity of his words made me laugh again, a sound filled with disbelief and disgust. What family, Michael? I said quietly. You destroyed our family the moment you chose a beach vacation with your mistress over being at your dying daughter's side. Please, he said, his voice cracking with what sounded like carefully measured emotion. I loved Lily too. I'm grieving as well. I just couldn't bear watching her suffer anymore. I needed to escape. So did I replied evenly, unmoved by his performance. Every single day I wanted to run from the horror of watching our daughter die inch by inch. But I didn't. I stayed. I held her. I sang to her. I made sure she knew she was loved every moment she was alive. Michael's face crumpled, and for the first time, real tears fell. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Bethany. Please, we can work through this. I'll get therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. It's too late for that, I said quietly, a strange calm washing over me. And you need to understand something. This isn't just about your affair. Affairs happen. Marriages survive them. This is about you abandoning your daughter when she needed you most. About leaving me to face her death alone, to plan her funeral alone, to endure the worst pain imaginable without the one person who should have stood beside me. I took a slow breath, meeting his eyes. Lily deserved better than a father who vanished when things got hard. And I deserved better than a husband who could be that cruel, that selfish in my darkest moment. Michael's tone shifted, his voice soft, almost pleading. What about our memories, Bethany? The good years? 8 years of marriage just thrown away? You threw them away, I corrected sharply. When you chose a tropical getaway with your girlfriend over your dying child, that was your choice, not mine. As we stood locked in silence, my parents pulled into the driveway, returning from an errand. My father's face darkened the moment he saw Michael. He strode to my side, his presence steady and protective. Everything okay here? He asked, though his eyes were on me, not Michael. Michael was just leaving, I said firmly. He needs to collect his things from the garage and find somewhere else to stay. Michael glanced between us, realizing he was outnumbered. This isn't over, Bethany, he said quietly. You're not thinking clearly. You're making decisions while you're traumatized. No, Michael, I replied, my voice cold but steady. For the first time in years, I see everything with perfect clarity. Now leave, before I call the police to have you removed. When he hesitated, my father stepped closer. You heard her. Get your things and go. Finally, Michael relented. He moved toward the garage, loading boxes into his car while I stood in the doorway, watching with a strange, hollow sense of justice. Before driving off, he paused, turning toward me one last time. I did love her, Bethany. I did love Lily. I met his eyes without flinching. Not enough, I said simply, then closed the door. The weeks that followed blurred together. Lawyer meetings, paperwork, the daily struggle to survive without Lily. The divorce moved swiftly. Michael offered little resistance once he realized how devastating a public battle could be to his career. His firm's strict policy against supervisors dating subordinates ensured both he and Amanda quietly resigned. The relationship that had seemed worth destroying a family quickly collapsed under the weight of consequences and gossip. 6 months after Lily's death, I stood in the small auditorium of the Children's Hospital where she had spent so much of her short life. Before me sat families, doctors, nurses, and donors gathered for the inaugural fundraiser of the Lily Williams Foundation for Pediatric Music Therapy. With part of my divorce settlement and donations from those touched by Lily's story, I'd created the foundation to fund music therapy for children battling cancer and support their families. It gave me purpose in a world that had lost its center, a way to channel my grief into something that carried Lily's light forward. Music was my daughter's joy, I told the audience. My voice steady despite the ache in my chest. Even in her darkest days, it gave her comfort and a voice when words failed. Every child who finds peace through music is part of Lily's legacy. The foundation flourished, partnering with hospitals across the state to create music therapy programs. I returned to teaching part-time, drawn back to children, with a deeper awareness of just how fragile and precious every young life truly is. Michael tried to reconcile several times in those early months. each attempt more desperate than the last, as his new relationship crumbled and the consequences of his choices came full circle. Michael's parents, horrified by what their son had done, chose to remain in my life. They supported the foundation wholeheartedly and helped keep Lily's memory alive. Through the hospital's grief support groups, I connected with others who understood the unique agony of losing a child. One of those people was James, a pediatric oncology nurse who had cared for Lily in her final weeks. Our friendship developed slowly, grounded in shared memories of her courage and a mutual desire to help other families through similar heartbreak. Every year on Lily's birthday, the foundation hosts a memorial concert featuring child musicians and beneficiaries of the therapy program. It's both painful and beautiful to see other children finding joy in music the way Lily once did, to know that her brief life continues to ripple outward and touch others. The pain of losing her will never truly fade. There are still days when grief blindsides me. A child's laugh that sounds like hers, or a glimpse of a little girl with curly hair, and it brings me to my knees. But alongside that pain, there now lives purpose. Even joy. Michael's betrayal taught me that the people we trust most can fail us when we need them most. But Lily's courage taught me something greater, that love endures. Beyond betrayal, beyond loss, beyond death itself. In honoring her memory by helping others, I discovered that the human heart can heal, even from its deepest wounds. Not by forgetting, but by carrying forward with purpose and meaning. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you for bearing witness to Lily's life and legacy. Have you ever had to find strength in the face of unimaginable loss? How did you find your way forward? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories of resilience through life's darkest moments. Remember, you are not alone. Together, we can turn even our deepest pain into purpose and healing.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.